Hello, I'm Colette Miller, a partner with Wilde and Company Chartered Accountants, part of Wilde Advisory Group.
Thank you very much for doing this interview. I'm excited, and I always find it interesting to speak to people that are sort of born entrepreneurs or born in an entrepreneurial family. Not everyone is, so and we've only interviewed a few, so I'm very curious to hear what your story is. Let's start with that, actually. Why don't you begin by giving us a brief background to your entrepreneurship journey and how Wilde and Company came into being?
Yes, well, interesting story. My father in 1962 looked at a map of where a CA firm was needed. And we were on Vegreville, Alberta, which is an hour east of Edmonton. There were major highways there, and it was a rural community. So they left their families in Saskatchewan and moved to Vegreville with basically nothing and two young children, my sister and I, and he started the business. So it was very lean times, the scarcity of entrepreneurs, having to make do and having to build a business from scratch was very challenging for them. So fast forward, I grew up with the business. You have no separation from business and family life. Your family dinner is often talking about business, the challenges and the highs and the lows, which is great. And then I think I had wanted to become a chartered accountant early in my career, but then in high school, I decided perhaps I would go into law, something else. And along the way, I had a little accident. I got pregnant just after high school. So I ended up having to wait out a year and couldn't go to university. I was supposed to go to Collège Saint-Jean, the French bilingual college. So I was pretty sad, but I did take accounting courses and I worked here in the office during the year that I waited for our first son, Jeffrey, to be born. And then after that, I got to go to university and I was overjoyed. I have never lost the appreciation and the gift of an education. So my husband and I moved to Edmonton. We had 4 children. By the time I finished my CA program, Chartered Accountant program, we had our family. I was 26 years old and we were farming, which is another journey in entrepreneurship and a whole nother story. So here I was. There was the opportunity to become a business partner with my father, and the expectation that I would become a business partner. So it was a really great time of my life, lots of excitement and challenges, and that's how I got started.
That's a fascinating story. And I like the fact that you're so candid and that you basically share that there were some challenges from the partners to the pregnancy to, I guess combining having 4 kids and studying and I suppose as well, maybe the expectation or the pressure or maybe simply the responsibility of being born in a multi-generational family business. Could you speak to that a little bit? And what would you say are the unique characteristics of family-owned businesses, in your view?
There's 2 schools of thought. You can be passionate about what you're doing, or you can pursue your passion. And I've always been of the first camp. I am going to love this work. I'm going to build a great business with great people, and I'm going to be responsible for the livelihoods of our team. And we've grown to about 40, 45 team members right now. So we have, a diverse, a multidisciplinary practice. So family is amazing because the DNA and the fit is automatic with your kids. They understand your core values, your basic principles in life, and that's how you build your business. You're very clear about what is important to you from a value perspective. So when you attract clients, when you take on new work, whatever it is that you're doing, it goes back to those core values.
Absolutely. That's such a good point. Values, and I was going to ask you about DNA. So we're sort of in the same space here, the human aspect, I guess, of what it means to be an entrepreneur and what qualifies successful entrepreneurs, especially in the Canadian context.
Are accountants, are lawyers, are any professional service providers really entrepreneurs? And I would say traditionally they're not, because they tend to be very narrow and deep, and sometimes a little arrogant and sometimes a little old school, and what we did was the right thing to do. So you have to have softer edges. And I think you have to have a much broader perspective of the world, and you have to have a growth mindset. So those are some of the basics of being a great entrepreneur. However, entrepreneurs need the accounting. And I have seen so many businesses either fail or they're not as good as they should be because they don't have the basics, which I would describe as understanding of cash and capital management, profit and loss understanding, even accounts receivable, accounts payable, work in progress, some of those basic stuff, how to read a balance sheet, how to handle and navigate tax, GST. So are there government programs available? What can you tap into to provide more resources for you? So those to me are foundational, and great entrepreneurs have that. Or if they don't have it, they are humble enough to accept great partners in their life. And that's where I see some roadblocks too with entrepreneurs, where I call it the arrogance, ignorance challenge, in that, they don't want to listen. These entrepreneurs, they if they can partner with great people, they will be much better off for it. So choosing trusted advisors, having partners themselves, business people that are in business with you, shareholders, whatever, that's the foundation to success. If you don't have all of those skills yourself, and you can't have it all yourself, you're going to have gaps. I have gaps, but that's why I surround myself with great people. And then other DNA qualities, which we've probably addressed a little bit, is communication skills. It's learning to present your ideas. It's learning to translate to your potential buyers, customers, clients, whatever it is. You need to translate your value that you're bringing to the world, actually. You need to communicate well verbally. You need to communicate well written, which sometimes is missing. And the flip side of being able to put it out there is to receive it. So active listening.
How would you describe Canada's entrepreneurship ecosystem? And what would you say are our strengths and our weaknesses in a general sense?
Canada has a huge ecosystem. And the problem is that sometimes it feels like chaos. There's a web out there, incubators, accelerators, innovation labs, business resources like BDC, EDC, FCC, venture capitalists, private equity, crowdfunding, government funding. Then you've got, I'm fortunate to be involved with the Canadian Business Growth Fund, which is awesome, and AVAC Limited, which funded startups and venture capital kind of company. So we have this phenomenal ecosystem. However, who helps an entrepreneur navigate it? It must be daunting for any young entrepreneur to try to find the resources. Who do you trust? And then bounce from one thing. Where do I fit? So, I love groups like the A100, which is entrepreneurs and coaches. And I'm not sure what you have. I know you have equivalents in Ontario and Quebec, but people that are willing to help coach young entrepreneurs and help them find their way through this web is amazing. And then we have post-secondary institutions that some of them focus on entrepreneurship, which helps. So they're getting it younger. But our core education systems, I just think it needs major transformation, because does it really enhance children's creativity, openness, and the curiosity of life tends to get a little bit squished for some reason. And we try to funnel people into consensus, compliance, streams that are known. What are you going to be when you grow up? Well, I don't know. Instead, that should be celebrated.
Well, I was going to ask, what would you say are, again, generally speaking, nationwide speaking, the main opportunities for Canadian entrepreneurs? Are there opportunities globally, since we have to think globally, that you think Canadian entrepreneurs are particularly well suited to go after today?
Of course, I have a sweet spot for ag tech, ag food, feeding the world, all of that. So there's that. energy, we are powerhouses in energy. And so, again, making sure that the policies and government philosophies support industries while at the same time finding the right balance between environmental concerns and everything else. But we've got some of the most innovative energy companies in the world. And we've got the best standards for safety and health and environment and climate, greenhouse gas emissions. Like, we're innovative, we are creative as a group. And so we could just have so much impact on the world, solving big problems like hunger. So we have great resources, we have great entrepreneurs, these creative types of people. And you just think about the innovation, but we struggle to tell our story. And I don't know why voices that maybe have a little story, they get amplified, and there's a place for that. We need our boundaries, but where there's such a great core story, it gets lost, and people don't seem to want to listen or believe how good Canada is as a whole and how great we could be on a world scale helping solve world problems.
One of the questions we really like to ask is, who needs to do what, basically, in your view? If we look at the role of government, the role of academia, the business sector itself, you mentioned incubators or maybe chambers of commerces, what would you like to see? Perhaps you want to highlight some of these stakeholders. What would you like to see them do so that Canadian companies can grow, can scale, and at the end of the day, can lead?
My personal philosophy is always change starts with each one of us. And it's too easy to say, what should they do about it? So I'm always reflective on, what can I do about it? And so, first of all, getting to participate in this is awesome, because anytime we can have a voice or have even a little impact, you don't know what ripple that will create on the water. So there's that. And then first me, what am I doing about it? I, did a pitch session for entrepreneurs for U of A 2 weekends ago, and being involved with Growth Fund and AVAC, where you can make a difference, and in our world here, helping entrepreneurs. So we're all really trying to help this system, being informed. And then what can they do? Because we talk about high level government politics and policies. And so making sure that the right stories are heard by the right people. Influencers, who is an influencer? How do you get the ear of people that can have significant impact on these policies to make sure that the energy sector is supported, for example? There has to be balance. So government, and then all these, like I said, the web of the ecosystem. Any organization I'm involved with, I always say, how are we going to knit these pieces together, and what resources can we be putting out there? Because even with interviews, I love listening to podcasts and interviews and stuff, but everybody's got limited time. And again, the willing student has to be ready to hear the information. So what more could we be doing is always the challenge.